welcome to another episode of So What You Drinking. Today is really a highlight of all my So What You Drinking so far, because I get to talk to two great singer-songwriters who, when I first heard this album, Billy Pilgrim, in early 2000s, they had already parted and gone separate ways, which was unfortunate because the album was such an epiphany for me. It really changed the way I looked at music and the way I wrote music. And of course, there were so many devastating side effects with COVID over the last year and a half. But a lot of things good did come out of it. And that is the fact that these guys got back together and they're making new music. And I am thrilled that they are talking to me today. I want to introduce to you Billy Pilgrim, Kristian and Andrew Hyra. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi, Kevin.
Hey, man.
What's
Hey,
happening?
Kristian.
What's up, Andrew?
Well, you guys know each other, obviously.
Sure. We go way back.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when I sent this out, I reached out to Kristian through Instagram, and I was surprised that you got back to me. Of course, I name dropped Kerry Wolf and former Atlantic label mate of yours, Mary Karlzen. So I had an ulterior motive, but I am thrilled to death that you guys have gotten back together. And I had followed some stuff on YouTube, and I noticed that you had there was a night at Eddie's Attic where you two must have crossed paths, and you were on stage. And sometimes you see with artists, you could almost see that you were looking at each other like, hey, this might just be something we should do again. Is that what was happening there?
What you say, Kristian?
Oh,
Are we
yeah.
talking about the night that we played during COVID when we did it for the Save Our Stages
No,
show?
it was actually back in like 2016.
Yeah, we had actually.
Oh, yeah.
And I could just tell. Sometimes you can tell. You look at each other, and it was kind of like you hadn't played for a long time, and then it was like, "Hey, we."
Well, stranger still. There's a video. I think there's a video of it of the year prior to that. What led to that? Us playing on stage that evening at Eddie's was at a songwriter festival in Florida called 30A, and Kristian was playing the same festival that I was with my band, and I saw that he was playing. I went over and checked out his set, and in the middle of a Pilgrim song, I won't tell, which is off of Bloom, I got up and sang on stage, and we actually hadn't talked in 10 years or more, and so our first communique was singing together before we even spoke on stage at 30A. I think that's a Google video somewhere. And so that set up us talking and setting up a night that Kristian does every year at Eddie's Attic with songwriters. And I came and played a guest slot during that night. So that puts that in context. But yeah, every time we're old musical compatriots. So, and we perform and play and sing, and it's, you know what it's like being in a band, it fits you like a glove, really, right? It's just something that's a natural, like, oh yeah, this right? That's how it always feels when I sing with them. So
and Kristian, I mean, you've been quite prolific during COVID. Of course, you've put this together. You've got new music coming out, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But Dark Water with your brother, of course, and which is a real interesting project. And I love it to death, man. I think it's great. But would you say that COVID was really, in the sense that um, ingenuity, necessity is the mother of invention. Did you find it to be stimulating from a creative standpoint?
Yeah, I think so. It's more along the lines of, doing this as a job inevitably puts you on tour, right? Because there's not really enough music business left to just stay at home. You have to go out and really engage in live performance in order to both find your audiences, but also to care for your own music and and the audience themselves, let them care for you. So there's not as much time as you might imagine to make music when you're also traveling around all the time. And so being home, I was immediately, I joke that I'm an introvert with an extrovert's job. So I was pretty happy. I was like, cool, how long are we staying in? But immediately, if you slow down long enough and you're a creative person, the first thing that hits you is, what have I done and what am I doing? and the what have I done immediately became a conversation about Andrew and I talking for years about how do you properly care for your history, for what you've created. How do you do that and give it the kind of respect it deserves, And we we had talked about it before, but we had never been able to spend any real time and effort and energy pushing all of those pieces to the front. And we got to do that. And during that, it reactivated such a natural conversation. I mean, Andrew and I could be on the phone and we'll make up an album. I mean, it's like silly that there are some people that when you get next to them, they're like the kind of chemical reactions that they talk about in science class, like, well, that looks like magic. Well, it does look like magic, but you wait till you feel it. It feels the same way. It's like, wow, I don't know why I'm doing this. Yes, let's make that. And then Andrew's like, and let's make 10 of them and then do it on the moon. Well, how about we do it over here? And how about we go over there? And it's always been a catalyst, whatever our joint conversation has been. And on top of being in the business so often and having the skill set to be able to express myself in not just one way or one band or one partner, I was able to encourage Andrew to start doing the same. And then now all of a sudden we're like, oh yeah, and let's put this out and let's do that. And Andrew, you want to come play with Dark Water? And do you want to do this? And maybe we should put out a Wagon Wheels thing. And holy crap, when's Sugarland going to go on tour again? And oh my God, will you play in this musical I got? And hey, will you do, it's like, and Andrew's like, look, I'm going to put out a Hyras record and I got all these things back here. Can we put them out somehow? Can we do a TV channel? Like it's a beautiful feeling when you have someone in your life that excites you in that way, but then also, it can be overwhelming when you have these kind of creative lifestyles to feel it alone. So there's a comfort in that is both permission and support.
Yeah, that's well said.
You talk about, you just rattled off all of these things, and then on top of that, you throw a record label. And I did notice that on your label and the people that played with you, Kristian, two of my favorites. I saw them at a club here in Milwaukee and jaw dropping. Larkin Poe.
I got to give credit where credit's due there. That's my brother Brandon. He's constantly got his finger on people who are super talented, and he could care less at what level of discovery the world is with those people. He just basically says, man, I love this. Check it out. And that's very contagious. And it's really fun to see people, because not everybody gets the chance to have a spotlight. And you got to be square with that life. But it's so pure when it's upstream like that, when brands like, ooh, this is cool, check it out. And then like 6 years later, you're like, holy crap, that was who you've been. You're like, that's fun.
Well, Andrew, I can thank you for one, Andrew, because I saw on Facebook about 2 months ago that, or maybe it was Twitter, it was one of the social media platforms. You said it was a Sunday morning and you were listening to High on Stress out of Minneapolis. And
great boom. Midwestern band.
Oh my God. I turned them on. I immediately went and turned them on. And they have that Replacements Minneapolis sound.
It's great. Hey. It's fun. It's great fun for anyone to be a connector. If you're a creative person, how important it is because it keeps you vital. I'm so lucky to have met Nick and played on Hold Me In, that record. And there's a really great spinster up there in Ottawa, Illinois named Dave Galandry, and he is a curator in a community, and he's a connector. And so the game is in life, you know, success in the music business is how many connections can I make? I just want to keep connecting people. I mean, that's the fun part, right? You get to turn people on to stuff. I was doing that when high school and college, when I was listening to music to my friends. I said, have you ever heard that? Listen to NRBQ. What a great band, right? I mean, it's the best. It's a high calling to be a connector to me.
Well, it's funny that
everybody can do it.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned connector because, as I said in the intro, when I first heard Billy Pilgrim, the album on Atlantic, it was just, it really was an epiphany. I immediately rethought everything I did with music. I pretty much threw out everything I have ever written. I came across that album through a friend of mine who, strangely enough, had no idea their connection to the music industry until we were auditioning for the TV show The Weakest Link out in LA for a TV game show. And we had made it through to the finals, and I was standing next to her, and she voted me off. And I just looked at her and go, what did I do to you? And from that point on, you know, we started connecting musically, and then she gave me this CD. I'll just let her, you know, tell you the rest of the story. I think you guys know her, Mary Karlzen.
Hey, Mary.
God.
How are you?
Nice,
So good to
KB.
see you.
Nicely done. Holy smokes, man. How are you? How have you been?
Good. So good to see you guys. It's been a long time, huh?
Can we back up and say, wait a minute, you were on The Weakest Link?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It was a terrifying
experience. Did you win?
No. Oh my gosh. They're that's why I got rid of KB, because you got to get rid of all the strong people first. You have to get them out of there.
There we go.
So, yeah, it's just, you know, I had a 3-month-old, and I think it was just an excuse to get out of the house. You guys know that feeling, right?
Awesome.
Sure. I just, hats off to Jennifer Stark if she's watching this, or we can get. I just talked to Jennifer this morning, actually.
Oh,
yeah?
Strangely enough, I did. Yeah. She owns a lodge up in. Do you guys know this? Where she's at right now?
No.
She bought a really cool spot in Woodstock, which she's always loved up there. But it's called the Phoenicia Lodge. If you're ever in that neck of the woods, and they're just a like 8 or 10 cabins. She told me to plug this actually today. So there'll be a link below here in a minute. But no, Jen's doing great. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook friends with her, but I never go on, and it just seems like I don't have time to do all that stuff. Do you guys do all that stuff, that Facebook stuff and the Instagram and all that?
Try.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have 2 teenagers as well, so.
Yes, I do too. I have my we're going to be empty nesters next year, so I'm
Wow.
got to find something else to do.
I know this truth. I got one that's gone and one that's like a couple years from gone.
Right.
I literally have to buy her a car tomorrow.
So songwriting, now that I got 3 great songwriters on here, this is great because I can just get out of here.
Yes, you 3 are great songwriters.
There is and I never really paid much attention. I just saw Billy Pilgrim as an entity, and so I don't know who wrote what or anything like that. But when I saw that in the Time Machine you were re-releasing it, and that there weren't hardly any copies, I was like, well, I got mine. I have no idea where I got it, but I had it on CD from the early 2000s. So when it comes to songwriting, I don't know who's responsible for this lyric, but she made it to Texas on 1 pair of shoes. What the hell? Where did that come from?
Sure. That's a song called
Blind Spot.
Blind Spot. That's exactly
Which
right.
you can play with that cut capo thing too. And
you can. That was my like Insomniac version too. You know, that song was hung around as a story in my brain for a long time because I was obsessed with just the idea of a blind spot. I knew that there was something about that in my life, because there was always one, you always repeat the same mistake somehow and you just almost can't see it sneaking up on you, and all your friends can. Like you can sit with your best friend and be like, look, man, she's just terrible for you. And they're like, no, she's not. I love her. She's everything. And you're like, dude, no, I'm sorry. I'm telling you now, it's going to end poorly. And they can't hear you. And it's mostly because when you're the person that is in it, you kind of can't see that. And I loved that. And then I had been tossing that around for years, even when Andrew and I were making our first few records, just trying to write a song with one word title like that. And Andrew got really good at it. He wrote one called Try that was awesome, that has this kind of one word title in it, and it's super strong. And Insomniac, and so I thought that was the secret, because when you're young and you're writing and you have any modicum of attention for it, you feel like you need to put on the same socks you wore when you wrote it, and like you get superstitious and you get all up in your head about it. And I thought maybe I needed a one word title. And holding on to it for so long, I'd taken this is going to be so weird to say, but I took a class in college, and in the class, the teacher was evaluating our writing, like our creative writing, and wanted us to tear out the first 2 or 3 pages and start there, because inevitably, as a person that's writing something, you over explain it. Right. And I thought, well, that would be the coolest way to start a song, is to start it right in the middle of the story. And so the song starts, she's coming home, it's been a long time running, she made it to Texas on one parachute. It explains nothing. Like, it gives you zero information, except it's it's either a person that's so high maintenance they need multiple pairs of shoes to get there, or they walked so far that's all they took with them.
Wow. Because it's funny that you say it's just like right in the middle and it doesn't mean anything, because the first time I heard it, I just got this visual of like heartbreak and sadness, and just I had to get out of here, and
it's the best part. It's the best part of starting in the middle of a story. Because you don't explain it, everybody sort of puts their own thing on it suddenly, because your brain is trying to fill in the blanks. It's like starting in the middle of a BBC crime mystery or something. Like, you're like, what the hell's happening? And then you make it all up in your brain.
There's a song, and I don't know if you've ever heard it, that's really interesting. It's called Matamoros Banks, and Springsteen wrote it. It's on Devils and Dust. And he wrote it backwards to forwards. He wrote it, the end is the first lyric of the song, and he wrote the entire song backwards. And that's pretty wild if you go and you listen to it and the story about it, which
I never knew that.
Yeah, which is pretty weird. Going back to the first album, first cut on the first album, and this is how sometimes you can take a look at songs that stand the test of time, because I was listening to it the other day getting ready for this interview, and Get Me Out of Here just grabs you like that, from the first acoustic guitar intro, and listening to the words, and that was written back in the early 90s. The more things change, though, the more they stay the same. And what we've gone through the last 18 months, it just speaks to that. Just get me out of here. And there is a life to it.
Yeah, that song was actually the song that got us signed and got us attention from Atlantic, and it was the first thing that Kristian and I ever recorded together. I think it was the first thing we did that day on St. Christopher's, right, Kristian? I mean, I don't recall how that day went. We made an album in a day in Knoxville, our first one, which meant recording it and mixing it. And we just did it with our 2 guitars, and he had a drum you played on a couple of the songs. I think Get Me Out of Here was one. You played a little brush on it, right? And so that was that day. And that was one of our first, that's the first song on our first recording, St. Christopher's. And immediately that got us, I remember Karen Krennis, and that got us some press, and that meant something back in the 90s when we were doing it, in the early 90s. And it took from there. And that's just an immediate I love expressions in songs that are that too. Songs are so multifaceted. You talk about visuals, lighting things up in your brain, but there are some of my favorite in the genre of rock music is like, you know, clarion calls right here. Where are you? They're just calls, right? And that's what my voice tends to want to do a lot of times because I have a very expansive voice. So, and it was one of my first few. Really, Get Me Out of Here was probably in the first 20 or 30 I'd written. So that was a lucky one.
Mary, of course, you've got a new album that just dropped as well. And Andrew, I want to thank you for not being able to make a session because I get to sing on it. So
we sold out already.
And I see you're doing really well with it, Mary. It's yeah.
We did it old school. Nobody releases CDs anymore because there aren't any CD players out there.
Right.
But we just did a collector's thing, and it's sold out, and then it'll start streaming in about 2 weeks. So
fantastic.
Yeah. I think that was the thing of, oh my God, I'm going to be an empty nester. I better get back to doing something. And, and, you know, once you don't have to drive them to every lesson and make dinner all the time. And you know how that is. Well, maybe you don't, I don't know.
No, I do.
But a lot of it falls on the mom. So I didn't really do music for a long time because it was, I wanted to not be the crappy mom that was never home. And, so, yeah. And so when they were old enough to start taking care of themselves, I started writing again. And yeah, so here we are.
That's so curious to me, though. There's a lot that you cover in there that doesn't get covered. It's like you have kids and you're doing this thing. How does music ever leave you? How do you not? You're a natural with the language. So is it always tapping you when you're driving them and you're not producing?
I was in Nashville. I put out something on dual tone, and I was in Nashville doing a shoot or something. And the babysitter calls me, screaming, "Carly cracked her head open. There's blood everywhere."
Oh,
I'm like, I'm 2,000 miles away. And, you know, I missed the tooth and the tooth fairy. And that night I couldn't sleep. And my childhood was really rough. So I didn't want I wanted to just, you know, I'm like, I can't do this. So I went home and started a kids trio, 3-part harmonies, and wrote around. My girls went to a nature preschool. So I would take the guitar in there and write songs around the curriculum, like counting apples and how to identify bird calls. And
that's so awesome.
Yeah, the parents started asking me, "Hey, can you record that for me?" So we did a couple CDs, and then they got old enough where that was like, "Oh my God, this is so embarrassing, Mom." So yeah, so then I'm here again. I don't know.